Hello, Lorcana YouTube community. Today I have a awesome pro player interview with a very cool, awesome friend that when I was actually there at the Disney Lorcana North American Championship in Anaheim, California, on day two, I was in there in the morning eating breakfast, and across from the table, I saw this guy chilling. Started talking to him. Saw him. I recognized him from the main event, and I remembered that he had made top 16. Started talking to him. He was telling me how he was preparing for the matchup that he was going into. And then, we kept talking, and then turns out he asked me what my name was, and I was like, "Oh, my name's Rip Lungs," and he's like, "Oh, it's me, Devoted." I was like, "Devoted from Pixelborn." And yeah, me and Devoted go way back in the Pixelborn days. Awesome red purple games, crazy matchups. That was a really awesome moment. Like I really love that when going to these events and about Lorcana. You were able to get a not only make it to day two of the event, but you ended up in the top fourth placement at the Disney Lorcana North American Championship, secured a world invite. Congratulations to you, Patrick. Welcome. Thank you for being on the channel. Go ahead and let people know how it feels to be a world championship invite person.
It's crazy. Like obviously, it was the goal for I believe both people there. Like the top four prices are cool, top two prices are cool, but like World Championship invite was so good because I'm from the East Coast and California is a bit far away, so I just went there alone and want to have a good time and play the game and enjoy it. But then
Mhm.
for Orlando, like the Walt Disney World Resort, that's some place I want to go with my whole family, bring my two kids with me, so it's gonna be a whole new experience. But I had to qualify for this, which was no easy task, but obviously that was the goal, and actually it paid off. So I'm quite happy with this. It was the dream weekend for me.
Yes, you literally lived that magical Disney moment. Your life was a movie that weekend, and it was super awesome to talk to you before the game and hearing your thought process, how you prepared. I can't wait to go into that. But the fact that I was able to watch you on the screen and you just kept winning, honestly, man, that was awesome. Again, playing against you back in the early Pixelborn days, back
Oh
to
yeah.
set one, truly an awesome feeling. And what the cool thing about it too is you were able to secure that placement with not your typical top three tier deck, not even probably top five deck that people would consider. You did it with purple steel. Why did you choose purple steel for this
Yeah.
event?
That's a very funny story because I'm not even like a purple steel player at its root. Like I played a lot of red purple before, and I was more of a control player, so I
Mm-hmm.
played a lot of red blue. I played much more red blue than purple steel. I did qualify for the Continental at Chicago, top 16 with red blue in a very close match on the best of three on the draw against red blue, and then I did top 100 in Toronto with red blue again. So I was all in for red blue. I did a lot of practice with it. I went into a special place where we can practice online to try to figure out if it's working properly. I did
Mm-hmm.
tweak my red blue deck, and it was very good. Like I had a lot of wins, a lot of 2-0s. I was grinding the ladder and stuff like that. But then I also figured out that it was also a deck where I had a lot of O2s, like losing twice against super aggro deck or people that kind of tune their deck against it. And since I was expecting more people to have red blue, I figured that most people would tune their deck to be able to beat it, and also the deck can sometimes just screw itself. Like if you don't find any IRM or any popsicle, sometimes you just lose by it. So I thought myself, okay, there's gonna be a lot of red blue players, and the mirror match is not as fun. Like it's super slow, and I don't want to go on time because that's super stressful, and you can lose points for that because it just ends in like a 1-0 or something like that. I was like, what is more consistent so I don't lose because of the deck failing and that could still have a good chance to win this tournament? And the clear answer was purple, obviously, like purple with the 12-1 drop that can trip itself, and then the new genie, and then yeah, you can have rabbit, you can have duck for the steel version. So I was okay. I need to play purple. So which color should I put with purple then? Because I wanted to play purple for the
Mm-hmm.
consistency of the color. And the first obvious choice was red purple because I did play it before. But I thought to myself like, what's the most fun character to bounce with the bounce package? And Duck and Pete was two obvious choice for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fun to bounce these cards. So I was like, oh, maybe Steel would be a good choice. And also, I think that Steel is one of the best color on the draw. Like you can have Calhoun that's much better on the draw. You can have Fire the Cannon if you want. You can sing some Steel song on turn 4 easily. So I felt like still had better chance on the draw. Like the Flint package in red purple is very strong on the play, but not as strong on the draw. Whereas steel is better on the draw for those like special cards. So I thought, okay, maybe with this steel color, with purple, then I have more chance to do two O's, and you need a few two O's
Mm-hmm.
to qualify for day two. So having a consistent deck to never lose on the play, but also being able to win on the draw was the key here. And during my testing, I only played 10 best of 3 with purple steel, so it's really not a lot of game. Like for Chicago, I did hundreds of games with red blue before going to Chicago, but for this one I only did 10 best of 3 and I never lost on the play, so that was good. And also did with a bunch of game 2 so like, okay, maybe this deck is very strong on the play, and then I just need to make sure I play well on the draw to have some 2-0s. And fun fact, during the whole weekend I had
Mm-hmm.
never lost on the play either, so I'm still undefeated on the play with this deck. So that's a good sign. I just need to work the draw version on the draw so I can win against other deck with it. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's why I ended up with purple steel.
yeah, man, I think you summed it up perfectly. I really do like the list. It's very consistent. The viewers can see it right here on the screen. And I think you said it perfectly right. Going into this event, I really do like that you mentioned that it's a best of two format and it's not a best of three, right? You need to be able to win on the draw more. And that was a really interesting point that you had mentioned about steel, that steel is very good on the draw with cards like Calhoun. Now, with this in mind, how did you go about like deck building towards this list? Did you find this list somewhere? Was this something that you ended up changing? How was the deck building process going towards this event?
Yeah, so I'm always like lingering around on the 20 Lore Pro Discord server, and as I said, I wasn't playing Purple Steel before. Fun fact: in my locals, I never played Purple Steel, so everyone were very shocked I was bringing Purple Steel. They thought that the stream was bugged because in Chicago there was an issue where they were telling I was on green yellow
Hmm.
instead of red blue. So people were like, "Really, you bring that deck?" And I'm like, "No, they just had an issue with the stream." So they thought that there was an issue again with the stream because it said purple steel, and they all expected me to play red blue or red purple. So yeah, I didn't play a lot of purple steel, but I did try it out, and
Hmm.
ended up on the GDRR thread about
Hmm.
the purple steel with the white roses, and let me give it a try. I haven't even tried the rabbit version at all. I just felt like the duck was so fun to play because it allows you to go wide super fast, and it's one of the best target for snake and fox. And like, okay, let me give this a try. I did only 10 games, everything went super well. And one of the important thing, which I think we don't care about enough usually, but it was that the deck was fun to
Hmm.
play. So I'm like, at least if I don't win, I'm gonna have a good time. Where sometimes other decks just don't feel good. They brick or something like that, and just frustrating. Like with this
Hmm.
deck, I never really break. I just run out of steam maybe, but it's always like a fun time to just cantrip your stuff, keep drawing and bouncing stuff. So just having more fun playing the deck kind of helped the decision to take it.
Hmm.
But I didn't make the deck myself. All I did was like take the last version of GDRR on Dreamborn, which had two Tinkerbell, which changed for one bell and one more crab because I thought that two crab was not enough. So I
Hmm.
went up to three because there's like four Diablos.
Hmm.
And then I kept the friends on the other side because the way this deck loses if you don't see any duck, so the friend is like your fifth duck that
Hmm.
can maybe find one, so you can start bouncing and drawing like crazy. So yeah, it was like 98% from JDR. I did 10 games and swapped two cards, and that's pretty much it. So not a lot of preparation for this deck, but
Hmm.
it paid off, so I'm quite happy with the choice.
Yeah, shout out to the 20 Lore Pro Discord and JDRR and the Purple Steel Cult in that thread. That's awesome that you guys were able to get this top four finish. And like you did mention a lot of interesting key points, like when you mentioned running out of gas. So we'll get into that. But overall, I do again think this deck looks very consistent. And with the player of your skill playing since this game's release, it makes sense that you need to have a bunch of reps to be able to pilot this deck. Now, as we get into the deck, what I do like about it first is the 12 one drops that you have. Anything in particular that you want to say about the one drops? I do think it's very important to have a consistent one turn play. And again, I do like you having those 12 one drops.
Yeah, I don't think I could play less than 12. Like these 12s are so good. They're all cantrip. Maybe in next set they're gonna have better one drops, but for now these are so good. And
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted at first with the biggest key point was consistency, and having 12 one drop means you most likely have one for turn one, and then if you don't draw your stuff, you can just use them for draw. or if you're against red blue, you just keep questing and don't trigger their effects. So it was very good to have 12 one drop. It's actually the way you want to play to win against red blue is to play multiple one drop instead of playing like 2 and 3 drops, so you can be more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And the turn before they wipe the board, you just trigger all of them, so you can have like a big hand to follow up the next
Mm-hmm.
turn. So yeah, those one drop are the key of the deck, and I'm starting to try Blurple also, and that's the other part I like. I also play a lot of one drops in the Blurple because having cheap character that can replace themselves is just so fun and it's powerful. So yeah,
Yeah,
and the crab makes all of these much stronger also.
yeah, that makes sense that you mentioned the Merlin crab because being able to turn your Diablo into a three hitter and then you draw a card to replace itself is actually crack. So I really do like that one drop consistency. And then followed by
Yeah.
your one drops, you have the standard four mana Mim, and you're playing three Calhouns. Why did you
Yeah.
not want to play the fourth Calhoun?
Yeah, she's only good on the draw, so you don't want to see her like every game, and
Mm-hmm.
it's uninkable because basically with the dock version of the deck, you want to be able to empty your hand quite fast. So you can start making value out of the dock, and if you're stuck with too many uninkable, it can delay your dock like business going on in your draw engine. So having too many Calhoun could lead to brick. So having less of them is much more consistent for the dock value. So yeah, the unlinkable are very low, which also allow me to do some very aggressive mulligan. I often do like 6 or maybe even 7 if I don't have a one drop in hand. So I like having this low unlinkable cards just to make aggressive mulligan and make sure I have a strong opening, because that's how you win on the play usually, being the aggro player. And against red blue, it's super important. And what I like about this deck, which we might talk about in the matchup later, is
Mm-hmm.
that it plays different ways on depending on the play on the draw. Like for instance, against the mirror match or against Ember Steel, usually on the play I'm like racing them and questing like crazy. But on the draw I'm usually keeping all my character like ready so they cannot challenge them, and try to set up a big board so that my strength are super strong, strength of raging fire. And like as soon as I get those, like I start to clear the board and have Elsa to trigger the challenge on my end to attack first with Calhoun and stuff like that. So I like that I can play this more like slow and steady or
Mm-hmm.
super aggro.
Yeah, no, I think that's what makes the deck like stand out compared to red purple, where you play a little bit more control-y aspect and you kind of get greedy with that Flynn package. And then here you're pretty much just like I can go wide and slow the game down a turn or two, and then you can punish with a card like Strength of the Raging Fire. So I do agree with that fourth Calhoun, the uninkable Sly. If it was inkable, would be playing four of. Followed by the Calhoun, you're playing the four Dock. This is, I'm assuming, what makes the whole deck function, right? You empty out your
Yeah,
hand, you go aggressive, and then Doc refills it. How was that?
yeah.
And is there a world where you ever play three Doc, or it's just always four?
I wish there was a world where I could play 5 Doc, but because honestly, for my testing, which was not super exhaustive
Mhm.
for this deck, the only game that was hard was on the play. Actually, was when I didn't find a Doc, and I mean on the draw, so it's harder if you don't find the Doc. So it's better to see 2 Docs in your hand, which is not ideal, than zero. So I went to 4, and it's like, okay, this is much better. I also keep it in my hand most of the time if I have it in mulligan, because I don't care too much if I get 2. And fun fact, I did get 3 and 4 in different game, which I still ended up winning, because
Mhm.
again, having one on board is so good because it makes all your top deck much better. All the bounce
Mhm.
top deck are better. Like it's super strong to just have one ready on board, and like not being able to be removed by the opponent easily, and they probably don't want to waste a brawl on it. So yeah, 4 Duck, I think it's the best number. You could go 3, but maybe you need to add some more stuff to draw, because without the duck this can run out of steam very fast. So yeah,
Yeah,
I think the duck is
I agree.
for sure the key part. There's no rabbit in there, so it's duck and genie, and that's it.
Yeah, and we can reuse the dog with snake, so very strong combo
Yeah.
there. Followed by the dog, you're playing four Smees. I think that's pretty standard. Doesn't really need that much
Yeah.
detail into that card. But I will say, you're not playing any Fire the Cannons. So I'd figure,
Mhm.
if you're not playing Fire the Cannons with Smee, sometimes people play Captain Hook. Why no Fire the Cannons or Captain Hook?
Yeah.
With that Smee combination.
Yeah, fire the cannon. I think the problem is that it's not good in all matchup, and it's usually a bit better on the draw. But I already had Calhoun to kind of stall the game a bit more on the draw.
Hmm.
The only reason I was thinking about Fire the Cannon was the green steel matchup because when they shift Diablo on turn 2, it's quite hard. And during my testing, the only game I lost with this deck was against green steel, but I was on the draw, so I won all the games on the play. But since they started the first game, like they 2-1 me with the green steel. And that player I played twice, so six game, and they shift Diablo turn 2 in the sixth game. So I was like, okay, is that supposed to happen? And I was not expecting a lot of green steel anyway during the Continental, so I'm like, should I really had a card that's gonna help my green steel matchup and maybe some aggro matchup, but be really bad against red blue? And also, since the duck wants you to empty your end, you cannot ink the fire cannon, so it can be bricky a bit. I was actually thinking maybe Baboon would be better for handling Diablo, but not breaking the hand for duck. So I was not playing the fire cannon, but I do have like four strength of raging fire, and my favorite play is just to drop the Pete on turn 3 because Pete on turn 3 is so sticky they cannot use action to remove it, so it's a guaranteed singer for turn 4, which sometimes is too slow against Diablo Shift, but against most of their deck it's fast enough. So yeah, that's why there's no fire cannon there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know a lot of people, like for example, me on Sapphire Steel use fire the cannons, but that's because we don't have these very broken one drop characters. But that makes
Yeah.
sense. That Calhoun
And the
replaces
two
these.
drop of steel are so strong. Like Smee and Calhoun are some of the best two drop in the game, and you also have the snake that's pretty good.
Mhm.
But yeah, the two drops are very good, and the fact that you can keep Smee on the play because it's more aggressive, and Calhoun on the draw, you kind of
Mhm.
always have that choice you can do in your mulligan and just in playing the card. So yeah, these two are super strong.
Yeah, I agree with you. A very strong
And
package.
there's a bell in the deck, so sometimes Smee can be useful with the bell.
Yeah, and I do like that one of Bell that you do have because everything else looks pretty standard, right? You're playing the four mana
Yeah.
Fox, you're playing the four White Rose, you're playing three Merlin Crab, which is again standard. You're playing the four Genies, you're playing the four Goats. The one Bell, how did the one Bell do for you? Was it
Yeah.
a good spot, or is that just like a flex spot in the deck?
Yeah, well, there's a few flex spot in the deck, and I'm not a fan of one of, to be honest.
Hmm.
So you would say like, why do you have two one ofs in your deck if you don't like one of? Because my thinking is that I want consistency, and one of is just so random that you're gonna get them when you need it. But the reason for one of is basically because it's open deck list in day two. So I'd rather have a one of something that the opponent needs to play around. So they're always like scared that I can pull out a bell and they need to play around it a bit. And if you have zero, they just like don't even need to
To play
think
around
about
it.
it. Like if I have damage on my Elsa or Genie, they're not scared of me playing a bed or something. So I like one of in open deck list just because it puts a menace on the other player, and usually
Interesting.
the menace of the card is stronger than the card itself. So yeah, that's why there's a one drop for Bell, and the one drop for Friends is really just a fit duck. Because if you don't find duck, the game is kind of over. So having a lot of three drop that could sing Friends to find a duck, it helps the consistency. So that's the reason for the 2-1 of in this deck.
And you keep mentioning about, like if you don't see dog, if you don't see your cards, you're playing the one friend. So that kind of, has a big question. We're missing one important card in this list. You're saying that you don't want to run out of gas, but yeah, you're not playing Merlin Rabbit. Why are you not
Yeah.
playing Merlin Rabbit? And how come there's only one friend? If you're playing a deck that, you want to empty your cards in your hand, you want to be able to replace themselves. Was it because the rabbit counter reacted with the dock?
Yeah, they don't synergize very well because Duck wants you to empty your hand, but Rabbit is an inkable, so you cannot ink it to empty your hand. And then when you play it, you draw a card, and then you play it dies or you bounce it, it draws again. So they kind of don't go well with each other because of that reason. And also looking at the thread and talking with some people that played Purple Seal a bit more than me, they're like, oh, you kind of need to play one or the other. I did try to play both. Sometimes it works when you get the good one at the right time, but I feel like you should choose between like rabbit or duck. But having both, it's a lot of uninkable. And I still have Genie, which draws a card, but the Genie is so key with like Elsa and the Genie War, and it quests for two. So since the duck draws two, the rabbit draws two, they kind of like very similar. The duck is a bit more aggressive, and the rabbit is a bit more control. So yeah, I could play both, but I think it would make the deck a bit more bricky. It would hinder my mulligan strength. Like I could not mulligan like crazy. And if you have two dogs and a rabbit in hand, it's very complicated. You need to play the rabbit first, but then it's gonna draw a card, and if it dies, draw another card. So you never empty your hand for the dog to make value. Yeah, but now I'm actually trying the rabbit version, which is a bit more mid-range because you can run the Zeus with it, which is fun against like the Maui Shark and other cards. I'm not sure yet which one I prefer, but I had more fun with the duck, so I just went with it. Yeah.
Did you ever feel you lost or you couldn't secure that 2-0 because you didn't have any more gas and you might have thought like okay rabbit was good here.
Yeah, but the duck and the rabbit is the same amount of gas because they draw two. Actually, the duck is faster, so unless I would play both, I don't think it would have made a big difference. The only thing I could see for the rabbit that makes it easier to draw more card is that you don't need to ink your fox and your snake before playing the rabbit. You can play it
Okay.
after and then draw more. So there's potentially more draws with rabbit. I mean, it's easier to draw more card with rabbit. You can bounce the duck and draw a lot, but it's easier to draw with rabbit because you can keep your bounce in your end instead of
Mm-hmm.
inking it before playing. But no, I think the game I lost was yeah, I could not find the dog, but it's usually very close. We could go around the matchup afterward, but yeah, the game I lost were only on the draws and against non red blue deck, it was always super close. So yeah.
Okay, very interesting. I know a lot of people were going to question about the rabbit, so I'm glad you gave a lot of good detail into that. You're playing the 4 Elsa, pretty standard, and then 4 Strength of the Raging Fire. Now, you did mention Along Came Zeus, and you were able to beat, shout out to the homie Zach Bivens in the top 8 match,
Yeah.
and he is on the 4 Zeus, if I'm not mistaken. Why did you feel like Zeus was not necessary in the deck? You're not playing Rabbit, but with 4 Genie,
Yeah.
4 Goats, you do have a couple singers to sing that.
Yeah, you really don't want to sing Zeus with Genie though, because it quests for two. You want to put the lore pressure to close the game with Goat and Rose. So in this deck, there's only really the Goat, but usually don't play them early. So it would be Elsa singing the Zeus, but Elsa is evasive, so it's a very good quester also. So there really isn't that much of a good singer. Rabbit is by far the best Zeus singer, and often he just draws the Zeus by itself, so it kind of combo by itself. But yeah, the Zeus would have helped with the red blue for like the Maui shark. But what I did in my testing and I also did in the tournament was basically as soon as they drop the shark, you can drop a Pete and just quest in front of it like
Mm-hmm.
easily, and it doesn't really matter. One thing I would like to test now that I did play a lot of red blue is the John Silver for 3 that prevents a character for challenging. I think that's even better than Pete against a Maui shark. But yeah, I didn't had it in this list, so that's some spice I would need to try for purple steel in the following weeks.
And you mentioned P. You are able to bounce cards back to your hand.
Mhm.
Did you feel like 4P was mandatory, like you couldn't get away with 2 or 3, or you just like having the consistency of 4?
Well, the most popular deck right now are like red blue, ember steel, and red purple. So both red blue and red purple has a bunch of be prepared. So just being able to play Pete when they have 6 ink and they going to their 7 ink is just very key. Like they cannot play the big Sisu yet, and they cannot be prepared. So sometimes that one key turn you save yourself from be prepared is the turn where you have like 4 or 5 or even 6 character on board. So that kind of close the game. And against Ember Steel, that's the way you can win on the draw because they play their Ariel on turn 3 and you know they're gonna sing Whole New World or they're gonna sing a big song the next turn, so you can drop your Pete in response to Ariel and just block them for one turn, and then you can potentially sing first if they don't play their own Pete on turn 4. So yeah, it's a key card in like all matchups, so that's why I have 4, and it's inkable, so I don't really care if I see too many, and I can bounce it if I need.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, four is a good number. And one thing it's very important because I'm a digital player mostly, and in digital you don't see your opponent, so that's something you really need to think about with Pete, which makes the card better. Like you can drop Pete, and looking at the expression of the opponent, you know if you block them for doing something they wanted to do or not, so you
Mm-hmm.
can know, oh, it seemed to really. Screw their turn, so I'm gonna just bounce and play it again. Or if
Mm-hmm.
you see no reaction at all, then maybe you just don't bounce and play it again. So being able to read the body language of the opponent when you play Pete is very strong also.
Can you just go over again why you only played one friends? Was it just because you always want to be questing and you don't really want to be wasting time singing? Because again, you mentioned about running out of gas. And
Yeah.
why no locations in this deck list? I feel like Library is a very strong card with the amount of one drops that you are playing.
Yeah. The location, I'm having a hard time with location where the deck doesn't have a board wipe. Like in red purple is so strong because you can set up those location and then when you be prep,
Hmm.
it just keep getting lower. Like it's kind of like you have a character that's already always exerted but survived the be prepared. Like that's super strong by itself. But with purple steel, the location doesn't do much unless you have like a ton of one drop, which you can trigger by yourself to die, to be banished on your location. So that's something that's good, but the does the one drop survive long enough? And you need to pay one to move them there, so it kind of slows you down. Where I feel like the dog version wants to be a bit more aggressive. And also one thing I don't like about location usually is that it feels a bit like a win more card. Like you kind of need to have a bit of the board control so it doesn't get destroyed the turn you played it. Especially in this purple meta where there's a lot of fox and crab around. Like it's hard to put a location and have it survive for a turn unless you're already kind of winning the game. So except for some very specific scenario like a control deck that doesn't have a character and it's about to be prep, you can drop the library and put everything in there. Usually it's hard to play it at the right time and it takes slots in the deck, and you just do lore on your turn. It's a one lore for a three drop, so it's a bit slow, I guess,
Hmm.
for this, but it could make sense because the purple one drop are very good with library. But I wanted to improve my win rate on the draw, and I feel like location improves your win rate on the play more than the draw,
Makes sense.
which I didn't lose on the play anyway. So I'm like, let's improve on the draw with the Calhoun and the strength and stuff like that.
It's a win more card pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, in some deck it's a key card because you can wipe board and stall the game and just play this to win. But in purple still, it's hard to protect your location from the enemy characters
Hmm.
because you cannot just wipe the whole board. You kind of need them to attack on your stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's harder to protect your location.
I'm assuming the one friends was again going back to that rabbit. It was just kind of productive with Doc.
Yeah, actually, that was in the GDR list, so I was like, oh, maybe I'm gonna give it a try. I
Hmm.
almost never played it, but since I was thinking about the deck, like if I see a duck, I win. If I don't, I kind of lose. So having
It's a
one
fifth
way to
Doc.
draw a bit more card, yeah, it's basically a fifth duck. Like if I could play fifth five duck, then that would be it. But since I cannot,
You got the one drop.
I'm just gonna go with a friend. So it draws two, and sometimes it can draw us into a duck. It and what I want to have in the deck is good top deck. Like again, we go back to library. If you're against red blue, you don't have any board, and you drop a library, they're just gonna destroy it. Where they're like dragon or Maui shark on the board, so it's not really a good top deck when you're out of gas. Whereas friend is a good top deck because
Hmm.
you can have more than three mana, three ink, and just play it and start populating the board with one drop. So I want most card to be good on the draw, which is often a problem with the bounce. Like Snake and Fox are usually bad top deck if you don't have any character on the board. So that's why I try to keep like a duck alive by not questing with
Hmm.
him and stuff like that, so that my top deck are always good.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I really do appreciate all the detail that you gave into the list. I think you were
Yeah.
very everything was pretty much accurate with what you said, and obviously everything worked out for you. You saw the cards that you needed, the deck works for you. It was very consistent, and you were able to get that top four finish. So again, congratulations to you and
Thank you.
your success in the event. Now we can pretty much go break down a little bit into your matchups. I will have your matchup score in the comments in the description. Is there anything notable that you want to talk about in your matchups? Because I do see here, just to highlight, you were able to 2-0 a mirror match, and you were able to 2-0 a green purple deck and a red purple deck, and you were able to
Yeah.
get 1-1 in those other matchups. Anything that you want to highlight or that stood out to you in your matchups?
Yeah. So going there, the expectation was basically to 1-1 red blue
Mm-hmm.
because to win on the draw against red blue, I kind of needed them to either miss IRAM or miss the ramp on two, and me having like a huge amount of one drop and dock and stuff. So the winning on the draw against red blue was quite hard. So okay, I was like, okay, if I 1-1 red blue, could be enough. 'Cause I shouldn't find only 100% red blue, and it's possible to win. Like I did win on the draw against red blue with good opening and stuff, but it's surely hard. But one thing to note is that I never lost on the play, which was more important. So
Mm-hmm.
if I was thinking, okay, red blue is going to be 1-1, then I need to at least 2-0 other deck. And the other deck to 2-0 was basically the mirror match was a cool one. I wish that game was recorded. But green purple is usually a good matchup, so that's
Mm-hmm.
cool. Red purple also, if you play correctly, it's a good matchup, I believe. And then Ember Steel, if it's the aggro version, it's easier than if it's the Steel Song. So
Mm-hmm.
this one can be challenging, but usually it should go well. And fun fact, that was my first round against Ember Steel aggro, like with the duck in mind. And I was very close to win on the draw, but they top deck a duck into double daisy and
Oh,
just closed the game with it. So
I
it was
missed
super
you.
close. They had a good top deck, but it was supposed to be a 2-0 for this one.
Mm-hmm.
Purple Steel was a mirror match. I don't remember if they were on the duck on the rabbit version, but this is the game where I had two different strategy completely. Like on the play, I went super aggressive, questing with everything, and then on the draw, I was keeping all my character ready and not questing, just to make sure my strength are super powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Like basically, the tips I can give to anyone is you need to win the genie war, and that's the awful genie war that's
The
happening
Genie
right now.
War. Yep.
And yeah, and the way you do it is that you drop a one drop on one, a two drop on two, and then you drop most likely Pete on three, but any three drops can do outside of Fox. And then on turn four, because they just played their genie, you play your own genie, so now you have four character, and the three drops sing strength on their genie, so now you have four character, including
Mm-hmm.
the genie, and they don't have their genie anymore. So that's why I'm keeping my character upright. I just need to make them more value out of strength. And Pete is the best singer because it kind of never dies. So yeah, having singing strength on turn four to kill a genie and have your own genie on board is how I kind of win on the draw there. I did it for this game. I remember it. So, and I believe they just dropped another genie on turn
Mm-hmm.
five, and I kind of draw into another strength. So it was
Very cool.
complete
Yeah.
control. And then I started questing when I had the board advantage. But before you have board advantage, you kind of not quest. You keep your Calhoun ready and until turn five, where you can exert one of the character
Mm-hmm.
and banish with Calhoun, gain lore, and start doing stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, and you had a successful day one, and you were able to get enough points to qualify for day two. After qualifying, how was your mentality? What was the feeling? And how did you prepare? Because now at this point, it's open deck list. You know who you're facing the next day.
Yeah.
How did you prepare for that? And how was the feeling knowing that you need to win this game if you want to qualify for the Disney Lorcana World Championship?
It was crazy. I was still on my last game, like because just to talk about it quickly, I was against Red Purple and I won the first game on the play, but then the game on the draw, I had my first starting hand, which had like two ducks, and then I drew the third duck, and then two turns later, I drew the fourth duck. So I had four duck in hand by turn three. I was
Oh
like, oh,
my.
this game is over. It was so bad of a start,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that I managed that win to win this game was like, oh wow,
A
that was
magical, crazy
unexpected. I
moment.
think my opponent kind of did break too because they
Mm-hmm.
didn't play like their one or two drop, I believe. But yeah, seeing four duck in the first three turn was scary. So
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of couldn't believe that I won that game to qualify for the top 16. So then I looked at the top 16 list. I know I was against Kurt Spice. I'm not sure if I saying his
Yes,
name
yes. Uh-huh.
correctly. Okay, cool. And I knew his name already because back in the good old Pixelborn days, we had like tournament that was organized within Facebook, so it's all like real name and not the
Mm-hmm.
gamer tag name. And I remember playing him a bunch of time to win some Enchanted and stuff like that
Awesome.
during Pixelborn tournament. So yeah, it's cool to see a familiar name like Diego says. Also, I play a lot of games with him on these Pixelborn online
Mm-hmm.
tournament. So I knew him by his name, which is cool to meet him in person for the first time. And then I look at the list. It was the mines, which I did fight in my first round in day one, so I
Mm-hmm.
knew how to do the matchup a bit. I saw that he had like the Rapunzel tower, which was a bit scary because basically how you win that matchup is that you need to always prevent any Rapunzel value. So as soon as they have like a character with 4 HP on the board,
Mm-hmm.
you just cannot quest with your 3 attack character because they're gonna get 3 draws from Rapunzel. So I just remove all four HP character, my strength and Elsa
Mm-hmm.
and Crab and stuff like that. So just keeping their 3 HP character on board. But then the Rapunzel tower could have screwed me up because they could have put it there and then get their
Mm-hmm.
Rapunzel value. But the first game they inked both, and the second game I was in total control because I got good draws and they didn't have any good draws. So yeah, I won this one 2 on the draw, which was a bit unexpected. But yeah, I do think I played that match pretty well,
Mm-hmm.
and the deck did what it was supposed to do. And the Pete was very clutch too, like putting Pete on turn 3, preventing them for using their strength or their let the Storm Rage on was always the key to keep my board growing and having strong strength of Raging Fire. So yeah, it was a cool match, and yeah, I'm quite happy with the outcome because that was the match to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the first match of the day. It's early in the morning. You haven't like played any other game. It's just like kind of like your warm up, but at the same time, it's your most important match because that's the one that qualifies you for the
Mm-hmm.
Worlds. And then it's always a kind of a bad feeling to kind of eliminate someone from
Mm-hmm.
getting the Worlds invite. But then I talked with Kurt, and he was saying, "Oh, I have still a chance to qualify because he was third seed, and there was two players that already qualified by being first place in
Mm-hmm.
DLC. So it was like, oh, if Zan and Ed wins, and then another one from the higher seed wins, I'm gonna get the invite anyway. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Maybe we can go together. That would be nice. And at the end of the day, he did get his
Mm-hmm.
invite, so I feel better because I didn't like eliminate
Mm-hmm.
anyone from their invite. So that was a
Yeah,
cool
that was
story too.
awesome. I was able to meet Kurt. Shout out to Kurt
Yeah,
that he got his championship invite, and yes, you were able to beat him, and now you have qualified for the world championship. I can imagine how you were feeling. You were very
yeah.
excited. It was super awesome to congratulate you.
Because I was
Mhm.
14th seed, so like there
Yep.
was no way for me to qualify if I don't win my
If you
first
don't get
game.
the pass down,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
able
So
to
yeah,
win.
there was no.
You were able to
Yeah, I
win.
was able to win. I was really in my bubble. Like it was
Mhm.
funny because there's a lot of people going there that are in teams. Like they have their jersey or
Mhm.
sweater with their names and stuff like that. And fun fact, I do recognize a lot of those people by their gamer tag because I played so much online.
Mhm.
But I was like the unknown person, like no name, no jersey. I was just sitting alone in my corner listening to music to kind of boost myself
Mhm.
morale and confidence. So I was listening to actually "Lose Yourself" by Eminem, which says like you have one shot, one opportunity. So
Yep.
I thought it was pretty fitting. I was just listening to that song, and then that's how I prepare for the game. I know some people in teams kind of went on Saturday night to practice against the exact deck they were playing for
Mhm.
the top 16 match with their friends or teammate. But I was just alone in my hotel room and chilling and and getting some rest. So I didn't even practice with anyone against the Kurt deck. I was just thinking about it, but yeah, I
You
just
were
did it
locked in,
on.
man. You had your anime moment. You had your movie moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Again,
And yeah, I
go
told
ahead.
my fiance and that I wanted to bring the whole family to
Mhm.
Disneyland because we have two kids, but California is a bit far. You have
Mhm.
jet lag and stuff, and it's a toddler and a baby, so it's kind of hard to travel
Mhm.
sometime. And but I was like, oh, I'm gonna try my best to get the word invite so we can at least go to Orlando instead, which is closer. The parks are bigger, so I was so happy that I could actually like do that
Mhm.
because there was no guarantee. That I was very stressed before going to that tournament that it could go really wrong. Like it's
Mhm.
obviously the best player in NA, so you're not gonna win entirely by skills. You only need a
Mhm.
bit of luck, a little bit of good matchup. Like the skills level is much closer between all player than like DLC or local games. So you cannot just think, oh, I'm gonna play good and that's enough. No, that's
Mhm.
not enough. You need to have luck. You need to have good matchup. So it was a bit stressful, but yeah, as soon as I won against Kurt, like everything was just bonus. I didn't really care about the next wins at all. It was good though, and it was fun to play against the
Mhm.
next, which is Zach Bivens,
Yes.
one of the fan favorites. So yeah, and also I watched the stream, and some of my Quebec friends told me that the casters said that I was the underdog, like I was unfavored into Kurt's deck.
Mhm.
So it's always fun when the caster said, "Oh, he's unfavored," and you end up winning 2-0. So maybe you did something good, or maybe they were wrong. They didn't test that matchup at all. So
Mhm.
it was a good feeling to be the underdog for this scenario.
Yes, you had an underdog story. You qualified for the
Oh yeah,
worlds, and like you said, at this
exactly.
point, you don't really care if you lose or not, but you still have to keep going. And you end up
Yeah,
facing against Zach Bivens in the top eight
yeah,
spot, and you were able to eliminate him to secure yourself a golden Mickey on top of your world championship invites.
yeah.
How did that feel, winning your golden Mickey and having that intense game with Zach Bivens?
Yeah, that felt like a dream. Like I went to Chicago with someone from Quebec that did win his Mickey in
Mm-hmm.
the first tournament, and he showed me to me like, oh, I want this one day. I'm gonna win this too, because I know we had like similar skill levels. So
Mm-hmm.
I say, oh, maybe if he did it, I can do it too. But I never expected to do Golden Mickey into the Continental because it's supposed to be harder than doing it in the
Uh-huh.
DLC, especially when it's top 8. But yeah, it was great. And talking about the underdog story, obviously against Zach Bevan, it was the most obvious case because it's one of the most well-known player. He always do like top in the day one. He did all DLC, I believe. So he's a very strong player. And it was a mirror match, and I was on the draw. And also he runs the rabbit version, which is a bit more mid-range. So potentially can have an advantage on the more aggro version because I
Mm-hmm.
cannot easily like aggro him out. But the game was so fun. I'm so sad that not those game were streamed because
That
it
was
was
intense.
interesting. Like
Mm-hmm.
top 16 and top 8, like it was very fun. But yeah, so what happened is like on game 1 I was on the draw. I didn't find any duck. I lost quite quite strongly, like
Mm-hmm.
didn't do much. And then game 2 I was on the play and I found my duck, but he didn't find his rabbit, so it was also one way game.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all come back to game 3 where I was on the draw again. But we ended up having like a very close game the whole match long. But then at the end we kind of went into top deck mode, and my top deck were better
It was
than
better
his.
than
Like I
yours.
was getting my Elsa, like he got, for example, the Chernobyl follower which you play, and I get an Elsa, so I can play it,
Mm-hmm.
banish the Chernobyl so he doesn't get the draw, and I have an Elsa on play. So my top deck were better, and I also did some very good strength of Raging Fire in that
Mm-hmm.
game. So it was close game, but yeah, mirror match are always a bit about luck of
Mm-hmm.
getting the key cards where your opponent doesn't. So yeah.
And then you go to your top four.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you were finally knocked out. They had to stop you. You were doing too crazy. What happened in your top four matchup?
Yeah, well, Red Blue is a tough matchup, and
Mm-hmm.
especially on the draw. I knew I was probably gonna win on the play just because of experience. I know I can go aggressive enough, and having one more turn to quest before they be prepared or Sisu really makes a big difference. But on the draw, it's super hard. You're always from behind, and you need to draw a lot of cards. So I needed my dog to win. I think game one, potentially, if I had some more dogs, there was a chance. Game two, I was on the play, so everything went as expected. It was still close though because it was a very intense match, but at
Mm-hmm.
least I was on the play, so that was the edge I needed to win. And then the third game, it was not super close, but I did some crazy duck top decks at the end that was super fun. So it kind of bring me back into the game, but it still wasn't enough.
It's
So
too
yeah,
late.
it's a tough matchup. I was not expecting to win this one. I was already happy with my golden Mickey
Mm-hmm.
anyway, but I was like, okay, let's have fun, and there's a chance I win. And at least if I did win, I was expecting to play against Ed, like Red Purple, because he made a very nice list, and I think his list was super strong against Red Blue, but probably would have problem with this Purple Steel
Mm-hmm.
list because the Tremaine really doesn't do much, especially if there's a one drop Diablo on the board, and I can go fast really fast, and then
Mm-hmm.
the Pete can lock the Be Prepared. So, and I did only one Red Purple on day one, and I won 2-0 with a very bad starting hand.
Mm-hmm. You're
So I was
confident.
confident about going into red purple, but red blue was hard. So sometimes it's a, I mean not just sometimes, most of the time it's basically a matchup lottery. I did get some good matchup for my top 16. I could
Mm-hmm.
have got one of those red blue starting because there was a lot of them in the top
Mm-hmm.
16, but I didn't. So this helped me a lot. And then purple steel, which was more fair of a match than red blue. So I did dodge all of them until top four. So I was actually quite lucky with my matchup for this. So I cannot really be sad about it. But yeah, I wish I would have had chance to play with Head because I think would have been a very interesting match with his list.
You're gonna run
Yeah.
it back at Worlds, bro. What do you mean? It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen at the World Championship. You got knocked
Yeah,
out.
but I
Uh-huh.
mean, I play all the decks,
Oh,
so
for
I
sure.
might not play purple steel anymore. And also, I kind of expect that we're gonna have
A new set.
at least
Mm-hmm.
set 7, so the deck are all gonna change. I mean, it's gonna change, but yeah, we will never know. And also, the other outcome was playing against Zan side, but that would have been hard if they
Mm-hmm.
if he shift Diablo turn 2 because I don't have any fire the cannon. So honestly, it was only the Eds red purple that would have been happy to face in top
Mm-hmm.
4 or final. The other one was were all much harder matchup, I think, from a deck's perspective. But Ed is such a good player that
Mm-hmm.
maybe it would have been a tough game anyway. But at least the matchup would have been better. But
Yeah. Shout out to
cannot,
Ed. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I cannot. be sad about the matchup anyway, because I think I got mostly the best bracket for going to top four. So yeah, quite
Yeah,
happy with this.
yeah, no, I'm very happy for you. You made it all the way through there. You got your golden Mickey. You got your world's invite. Again, super excited for you. Congratulations! Really awesome to have played against you know back then when Lorcana came out through the Pixel Board days, standing across from you, not even knowing it's you before the tournament started. Just genuinely having like an awesome conversation. Like I was just there eating breakfast.
Yeah.
You were there eating breakfast, and I just want to talk to you about Lorcana. Like I was really intrigued on you know your thought going into the matchup, and then again finding out that I was you was just an awesome memory for me. Congrats to you. Now that you have your World Championship invite, I know that you said you're going to take your family to Disney World. Uh, to end this video off, how are you prepping for the World Championship? How are you feeling? And just give me your thoughts on you being able to say that you have a World Championship invite and you're gonna go there, and I know you're gonna do very well.
It feels so good. Just a fun fact, like I said before, I'm mostly a digital player. Like I played Magic at 14 years old, but didn't play much because I didn't have enough cards. I was getting
Mm-hmm.
destroyed by older players which had like meta deck. So I did drop, and then I keep playing TCG online with Hearthstone stuff like that. And then in 2019 or something like that, I started playing Keyforge more, which
Mm-hmm.
was another TCG, and I did win, which I still have here. Like I didn't win my World
Oh,
Invite
there it
for
is.
Keyforge, but this was, as you can see, the 2020 World
Mm-hmm.
Championship. So as you know, 2020 was the year of COVID, so this was cancelled because of COVID,
Oh, that
and it
sucks.
never happened anymore. So basically, I have an invite for a World Champ that I could never go, and I was super pumped for this one. I did practice a lot. I was like, okay, I'm gonna play this deck. It's gonna be awesome. I was ready. It was
Mm-hmm.
in Minneapolis, which is not too far from me, so I was super minded to go and win this world championship. But then COVID happened. It was canceled, and then the company sold the game to another one, and the other one said, "Oh, we're not gonna take these invite into account. We're gonna reset everything." So I'm like, "Oh, I
Yeah,
just
that
lost my
sucks.
invite to world because
Mm-hmm.
of the COVID." So now that I have another invite for another world for a game that I feel is better anyway, it's so great. I feel like I have my second chance to going into
Mm-hmm.
a world, and I hope there's no more disease coming in because I don't want this one to be canceled.
Nah, it's your
Also,
moment, man.
yeah, this is it. And I did play so many games on Pixelborn, some more so locally and other platform, but yeah, forward is gonna be crazy. I just hope that we can have the date soon
Mm-hmm.
because I want to like take a few weeks of vacation to
Mm-hmm.
practice and start trying out stuff because it's probably going to be in a new set. But yeah, the idea is probably going to be as I did for Chicago and for the Continental, like having hundreds of game
Mm-hmm.
going in. The challenge is to select a deck, 'cause since I play all colors, like it's hard for me to choose a deck. I keep changing idea
Mm-hmm.
based on my testing, and then it's hard to me to lock in a deck. But I feel like for Worlds, I would need to lock the deck earlier and have more reps with the deck than locking it like the day before with
Mm-hmm.
only 10 games. It's a good thing I did play a lot of red purple because purple still kind of play similar in a
Mm-hmm.
way, but yeah, it would have been great to have more game, but it did go good anyway, so it's not too bad. But yeah, for worlds, I'm gonna try to lock my deck, at least my deck
Mm-hmm.
colors, early, and just tweak some few cards here and there, because otherwise it's kind of just going around and you never really have a deck with hundreds of games
Mm-hmm.
in. So yeah,
No, I'm glad that you mentioned that because before we end the video off, I do want to share to the viewers this awesome thing that you sent me, and I think
yeah,
it's very, very, very important for people who want to get better at Lorcana, just to get better, pretty much get it better at anything that they want to do. Is it's practice, but actually understanding your practice, understanding your losses. So right here, I'm gonna share with the viewers this on the screen, and this is crazy, man. What I'm looking at here, what this means to me is pretty much all the various different games that you tested with all these different decks. You have this amazing Excel spreadsheet, pretty much just going into very detailed on how the game went, what deck you used, what deck you played against, notes from that matchup. I recommend every player to do this if they want to get better at the game. Wow, like I'm gonna start doing my Excel spreadsheet like this. What can you say about this to the viewers?
So I feel like these kind of statistic and Excel sheet helps a lot because one of the most important column for me is the last one, which is the notes. Because usually when you make a deck, you have some flex spot and you can
Mm-hmm.
play one card or the other, and it's hard to determine like which one makes the most impact for which matchup and why. So having those notes, what I do is that when I win by a specific card that did a big difference, I call this card the MVP. And if I see a card being named MVP often, then maybe that's a key card. Maybe you need to play four. But usually, and that's what I tell my locals too, is the game you lost are the most important one to go back and revisit. So every game I lost, I have explanation to why I lost. Like, is it a card that broke me? Like sometimes it could be like, for instance, go to
Mm-hmm.
Mago, like it's something you need to play around, or the Maui shark you couldn't remove it. So I take notes for my loss all the time, and for my win if a card didn't make a big difference. And that's how I can improve and figure out what beat me. And also I started to add another column, which is the matchup column, where I kind of determine if one color pairing is a good, bad, or even
Mm-hmm.
matchup. So it's easier for me to pick a deck based on my reading of the meta of a challenge. Like I always try to see in advance what people's gonna play. And I was expecting more red blue for the
Mm-hmm.
Continental, so on that end I was right. Maybe I was expecting a bit more green purple, but seems like that's more of a EU meta that they run a lot of green purple.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, trying to figure out what people will bring and then figuring out what deck has the best matchup or even matchup against those. So I did had this column, and then I do have the win lose and the play draw, so I can do statistic on like do I win on the play, do I win on the
Mm-hmm.
draw. And I was really looking for the deck that wins on the draw because that's key. And when I did those 10 last game with the purple steel, I found out that I never lost on the play and I did win a bunch on the draw. So it felt like a good deck, and also the matchup
Mm-hmm.
always felt like even or easy. So it was feeling good. I mean, the problem is that you play with a lot of different opponents, and sometimes they break, sometimes they're maybe newer players,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not always the truth. But having a lot of
Testing.
stats like that
Mm-hmm.
really helps to track it. So you can see I did try a lot of deck. I also thought
Mm-hmm.
about bringing blue green because it's very good against red blue, but it was just not tuned enough. So I was a bit scared to bring that
Mm-hmm.
deck. But yeah, a lot of red blue games. And something also that's important for maybe the players that wants to play only two colors, I feel like it's still very important to play all the decks, because when you play a deck you also learn how it loses, like
Mm-hmm.
what's its weaknesses. So the fact that I played so many red blue deck, like I know what it's trying to do and where can it fails, what's the challenges when playing this deck, so I can try to use that to my advantage when I'm playing against it too. So that's why I try to play a lot of colors. Yeah.
No, that's crazy. Like that last part that you said. Like I really do hope people are paying attention to this because we're getting this experience and this knowledge from someone who has qualified for world championship, and that just goes to show you like when you take this dedication into your practice and you turn it into this data, it just goes to show like you deserve to win. Like you deserve your chance because you put in the work, you put in the practice, you put in the effort to get those results. So again, I'm gonna personally be doing something like this, and I really want to take my level to the level that you're at. It was really
You can
awesome.
also go
Uh
the
huh.
next step. One thing I was doing, which it's easier for me digitally than physically, but one thing I was doing with like online tournament was recording all the games, and then I
Mm-hmm.
watched the replay of all of my games, seeing if I did a misplay on turn four,
Yeah, that's good too. Mm-hmm.
what would have been the impact if I kept that card. Did I ink the correct card? And then I was trying to figure out, okay, if I did ink this one instead, what would my hand look like on this
Mm-hmm.
turn? Would it have been better or not? Like looking back, your game being able to pose on the turns that were more complex with more choices and trying to evaluate the outcome now that you know what your opponent had in their hand. Like being able to roll back and see and pause is so strong. I was doing some of this in the competitive team for another online TCG. We were reviewing every member of the team games, like step by step, turn by turn, especially for the game we loses, because usually that's where you have more learning,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to figure out did I make the correct choice on turn one, turn two, turn three, and so forth. So yeah, that's the next step. I don't do it for all of my games because it's a bit heavy, but for important games like tournaments or games against an opponent that you know is very strong, I think that's where it pays off. Yeah.
Very well put. Very well put. And again, like if you want to, if people want to take to like be that competitive and actually have success in this, that's what it takes. and you said that very well. Again, I'm gonna be taking some of those skills and hopefully step up my level for 2025. It was such a pleasure, being in that room with you, being able to
Yeah.
compete with the same level as you and everyone else in that room. It was awesome meeting you. I had an awesome time at the event. Again, congratulations to you. Thank you for coming on to the channel. This deck list was awesome. You're an awesome person. Do you have any shout
Oh,
outs that
thank
you
you.
want to give before we end the video?
Yeah, well, I did a shout out to JDRR already
Hmm.
because he kind of made the deck and I use it, change a few cards. But also, shout out to you. It was nice meeting you in person,
Thank you.
and it's crazy how I know a lot of people by their username. Like the fact that we talked for like a lot of, I don't know, like 10, 20 minutes
Yep.
or something, and then figure out that we knew each other by our gamer tag, but didn't with the face and name. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's the fun part. I feel like the community in this game is so awesome. Like I can talk to anyone. I went to see Wonderland in Toronto. Like it's super
Hmm.
easy to chat with different persons. So yeah, it's welcoming. The game is fun. I haven't seen any like toxic player. I
Hmm.
like obviously it was a very stressful game with like big prize and stuff, but every time I won, especially the 2-0s, I didn't felt like the other player was like a sore loser or anything
Hmm.
like that. So I'm so happy about that because I know it's not the case for all games and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm happy with the community, and I think that's what bringing me back to this game, and which is also why I kind of made an exception to play physical game because usually I play digital one, but this one has a very good experience in person,
Hmm.
so I enjoy it. Usually I just avoid it, but for this one it's cool, and that's also why fun fact that my shuffling skills are pretty bad because I don't shuffle cars usually. I just play online. It do it for
The
me and it's
simulator.
faster.
Yep.
So I probably need to practice my shuffling so I don't look too weird compared to the other that played physical games for years. So yeah.
Well, thank you
So
for
yeah,
that, man. Thank you for coming on to the channel. I hope to have you again. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story. Congrats to you. I know you're going to do an awesome job at the World Championship. I'll be rooting for you.
hopefully.
And
Yeah.
until then, thank you. And thank you for everyone for watching. Again, hope to have you on the channel next time. And thank you guys. Appreciate for everyone who stayed until the end and watched the video. Peace out.
Thanks.